Hey guys, I know no one's there yet because I just started. Okay, let's see who's getting on. I am DrDeb, and it is Thursday. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time, and that is why I'm speaking with you. By the way, there were a couple of glitches. There were a couple of times when something went wrong and I could not make it, but I want you to know I'm really pretty regular, and if I don't do Thursday at 1 o'clock, I'm going to send you an email, hopefully, unless I'm sick and I just, whatever. But just so you know, that it's always going to happen on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Oh, maybe on a holiday I'll take off. Yeah, I took off on Thanksgiving. Did everyone have a great Thanksgiving? Whoever's on here, this is another point. So important. Please, please, please chat so that I know if, number one, this is making sense, and number two, you have an opinion that you'd like to share, or an experience, or a question. Just let me know, because I really prefer a conversation rather than me talking to myself, which I do all the time anyway. I live alone, so why not? But it's not so much fun. That's why I'm here trying to talk to you. So you guys, talk to me. Tell me if things make sense, okay? Let us get started with today's topic. Today's topic is all about no more temper. Is that possible? Meaning, and this is super important, people will say, I'm born with this problem. This is who I am. I can't help it. And most people would agree with them. Yeah, that's who you are. You're born with it. Doesn't actually fit science. You remember Fauci used to talk about science during the COVID period, and some of it was true and some of it wasn't. And so, yeah, you'll have to trust me if I say it doesn't fit science. What I do is I really actually read the literature. In fact, when somebody tells me of an article that says X, Y, and Z, I will probably go to the article and check it out. And if does it really say X, Y, and Z, or is someone misreporting it? I don't trust anybody these days to report things with accuracy. So if I say it, I've checked it out. Okay, you guys, just so you know. All right, so the science says, and this is the key here, our genetics may predispose us to certain behaviors, but they don't guarantee. They're not straitjackets. Our genes are not straitjackets that require us to go in a particular direction. I joke with some of my grandchildren. I have one or two that don't like chocolate. And I will tease them and say, are you really related to me? Because I like chocolate, But the reality is that we can even change our tastes. I used to not like olives or olive oil. And then I read, and this goes back 20 years, that olive oil is much more healthy than canola oil. For various reasons. This is the wrong live to get into the reasons. I trained my taste buds. So that I would bake a potato and I'd put a little olive oil on it with salt, just enough to barely taste it. And I got used to it, and then I'd put a little more, maybe a month later. Anyway, we can change how we respond to our environment in spite of our genetics. So I don't want to hear from anyone, well, this is who I am. Well, okay, this is who you think you are. This is who you've been for a very long time. But that doesn't mean that this is who you're going to be forever. It just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. So why am I saying this? Because when we look at the world of people who have a temper, then we have to ask ourselves, well, if we can change it, why is it so hard to change? And I've heard so many people who say, actually, I really try and I can't seem to change it. What is wrong with this chat? It looks like the chat isn't working. I don't understand why. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. I wish somebody would chat in there because I don't see where I can type unless they change the interface. But somebody tell me that it's working. Oh, now it says welcome to live chat. All right. Oh, thank you. Okay, great. It's working. All right, good. So people will say, I lost where I was actually. Oh, with tempers. Why is it that I try to control my temper and I really mean to control my temper and I can't? Doesn't that mean it's out of my control? Excellent question. And I think a person who has such a problem that where they have a temper, they wish they didn't because they know it bothers people and it hurts people and it scares people and it builds a wall between you. Those people must feel terrible about themselves because they don't even like the temper that they have, and yet they can't get rid of it. And so I want to kind of backtrack a little and explain why this is with the case that I wanted to get into. So there are two kinds of people in this world in terms of how well they respond to therapy. Okay. Category 1 is people who get through it quickly, and category 2 is people who don't. And you can look at a vast array of behaviors and feelings and experiences, and you can know ahead of time who's going to go in which category. So when you have, for example, anxiety, people could probably get through that a little more quickly than others. People who are often dissatisfied or they feel like a victim, they might be able to get through therapy pretty quickly as well. People who have a temper, that's something else. Those are going to probably be the slow people. Why is that? Does it have to do with intelligence? No, it doesn't have to do with intelligence. Does it have to do with how much they care? No, they can care a lot and still have trouble. Does it have to do with sensitivity levels? Possibly. Here's what the most, I feel, important factor is. It's history of childhood trauma. If in your childhood you experienced any number of things that we could call traumatic, such as a divorce, rejection, a lack of empathy from your parents, a lack of understanding, a kind of a just missing, being out of sync, a lack of attunement, even a well-meaning, well-intentioned parent can be out of sync, out of attunement, not get it. That can be very, very not only frustrating for a child, but actually depressing. And not only that, it can alter a child's sense of reality. Because here's the child thinking, whatever my parent thinks must be reality because they're grown-ups. They're supposed to know better than me. I'm just this little person. So if the child is feeling, let's say, hurt, unlistened to, picked on at school, hates school for other reasons, such as having a reading disability, it could be anything, and the parent doesn't get it, isn't attuned to the child's feelings or concerns, and the parent just loves on the child without any real understanding, the child is going to start to think there's something wrong with me because after all, my parent knows best. So that's why I'm saying that lack of attunement can literally lead a child to feeling like there's something wrong with them, distrusting their own emotions, distrusting the cues that their body is sending them, distrusting their own sense that they're making of the situation. And I'm just making up one example. There could be many things that could go wrong in a child's childhood in relation to the parents. So here's the question. What does that child do? The child comes up with strategies, not conscious strategies, automatic strategies, because the child is too little to think up strategies. I heard a client tell me about her teenage kid, and many people think this way of teenagers too, that the teenager was gaslighting, manipulating. That's baloney. That's baloney. What happened was the kid learned strategies as a very young child, way before they had the cognitive ability to be able to make sense of what they were needed to do for themselves. They just did it automatically as a protection. So when they had this automatic reaction as a protection to life situations, what happened? That started to feel good. That started to give the kid inside a little breather. So let's say, for an example, the case I was just describing of an unattuned parent. Parent means well, loves the kid, but doesn't get them emotionally. The kid can now come up with strategies to protect that horrible feeling. One strategy is, I don't have feelings. That's a strategy, right? If you don't want to feel a horrible feeling, the only way to weed them out is to not feel any of them. That's strategy number one. Another strategy a kid can come up with is, these parents of mine, or that parent of mine, is the most horrible person on earth. They don't love me. They aren't good to me. And I am going to yell, scream, and rage every opportunity I get to keep them at a distance. Because if they're at a distance, then what happens to me? I'm safe. I'm safe, right? If they're at a distance from me, then I'm safe from them, because I'm not going to hear from them words out of their mouth that are going to be out of sync with how I feel if I felt my feelings. And since we're talking strategy number two, which is just be enraged all the time, then we're going to have that wonderful protective distance. So you see how protection like that can work. Have a rage instead of crying. Crying will get you nowhere. Your parent will mock you. Maybe not that one, maybe not the loving one, but the other one. The other one will mock you, so I don't have feelings. The first one, the one that doesn't get me, I'll just keep them at a distance, so we won't have any opportunities to find out if they don't get me. So now the kid has two strategies. Notice they didn't come up with this themselves consciously. It just happened. They discovered that if they put on this and they put on this, it would work for both parents. And then they had siblings maybe who would beat them up in between, and they couldn't go crying to either parent, so they learned to be tough and beat them up too. So now they've got three strategies, right? Keep those you love at a distance by being verbally mean. Have no feelings, so that when the person who scares the bejeepers out of you, and I have other words I could use, does, keep them at a distance by just having no feelings. Like, who cares? I don't care what you do. And for the people who are on your level, your siblings, your peers in school, we could just beat them up. We'll keep them at a distance that way. So what happens when that person grows up with these three powerful protectors, this triumvirate of protectors who they don't even know are protectors. They don't know that's not who they really are. They don't know that they don't actually have feelings. They don't know that they would love to not keep your spouse, their spouse at a distance. All they know is this is who I am. Of course it's not. They just got used to these superficial things, these protective ways, and they don't know what else to do about it. Okay. So now, what happens in the marriage? Well, the spouse is going to react, right? If the spouse wants to get close and that guy puts, or woman puts the spouse at a distance, we'll call the first person spouse number one and the second person spouse number two, because unfortunately, trauma is an equal opportunity thing. It happens to men, it happens to women. Women develop the same protectors as men do. Not every woman will develop the same ones, but I'm saying as a general group of people, they can. So spouse number one is the person who developed all these things, and spouse number two is the reactor. The reactor has their own story, right? The reactor also feels like they were mistreated in some way or are being mistreated, and they really are. Because if your spouse is keeping you at a distance, either by turning off emotions or just being enraged all the time or beating you up, God forbid, any of these things do work to keep you at a distance, you're not going to like it and you're not going to react well to it. So this is going to bring up all your protectors. And here's the question: when and how do you get real? Which gets back to the beginning of this talk where I said there are two categories of people: the ones who get through therapy quickly and the ones who get through therapy slowly. The earlier you developed your protectors in life and the more protectors you had in life, and the less your true self was able to shine through and be who you are, the longer therapy will take. It's that simple. The ratio simply happens because of the fact that when you are going through stuff with the therapist, your protectors are still there. Your protectors aren't going away anytime soon. And then you go home to your spouse number two, and you do your spouse number one thing and spouse number two reacts. So the two of you trigger each other. So what do you do about it? How does this work? So I wanted to give an illustration with a true story. And I actually looked up the files of these people that I'm going to talk about. They were like 20 when they came in, very young people. They were already married about a year or less than a year, something like that, and they knew something was wrong. The long and short of it is they both came from very, very painful childhood homes. And as a consequence, everything I just described about having a temper is what happened to them. Oh, I want to explain why the temper type of behavior is an indication of more trauma. Generally speaking, a temper is usually associated with a reaction to being abused. That's a higher level of trauma. I mean, you could have a parent going to the hospital and being sick or dying, and these are types of trauma. Generally, the reaction to that will not be a temper. A temper will be a reaction to being misjudged, misunderstood, or mistreated. So like if your family did a lot of moving, you're an army brat, that's not being misjudged or mistreated by your parents. So you probably won't develop a temper from that, although you could have had that with something else. So getting back to my particular case example, when they come in for therapy and a couple is working together with their own stuff, it's going to be very, very hard to not be reactive to each other in that moment. It's going to be very hard. And that is why it can take longer to go through that therapy when the two people are together. So very often I will, and this is something I learned way later on in my professional life, because I was not taught to separate people. I was taught you kind of hammer it out together, and I don't think that's a good idea because each one triggers the other person. Now, it's true they're going to go home and do the same thing, but at least they can have a healing experience in therapy of being able to truly express themselves and separate out those protective parts from your true feelings, the soft ones, the vulnerable ones, the ones that you forgot you had. Okay, so this couple came in on and off. I hate to say how long ago it was, but they came in for about 5 years. They started it's almost 10 years now. I looked at my notes. And at some point, they got vastly better. But before they got better, there were many, many steps forward and steps back too, because one of them, and I won't say which one because I don't want to attack a particular gender, but one or the other of them would feel a sense of exhaustion at being the bad one. I'm the one who's always wrong, and they're tired of it. And I've seen this as a pattern. Therapy that takes long because you've had trauma really kind of double penalizes that person who had trauma. Because in the relationship with others, they're going to continue to inflict their protective behaviors on other people. Behaviors that look like defenses or look like attacks and are attacks. Either the coldness, as I said, or the verbal attacks, or God forbid, physical attacks. And by the way, research shows that verbal attacks are sometimes more psychologically damaging than physical attacks without the verbal. Because the physical attack without the verbal, the person can say, I'm so sorry, I lost myself. And the other person can be forgiving. I mean, they really should start to see a pattern and do something about it. But still, the verbal attacks, they leave something in your heart that's very poisonous. So research has shown across the board that you can heal better from the physical attacks than the verbal ones. That said, these are the 3 ways that the person has been getting treated, and they're still going to get treated that way through the therapy process until such time as the person themselves in therapy starts to experience their real self, their deep feelings, the feelings of pain for others, compassion, the desire for connection, those feelings, until there's a certain mass of weight that they feel of themselves and their true feelings in therapy, they're not going to be able to take that home with them. So we have to have like a crucial mass of self-energy happening in therapy, slowly peeling the onion back and separating out the temper part from the others. Once the person with the temper starts to recognize, no, that's not actually who I am, and I have been using it to keep people at a distance, and that makes me feel protected, but it doesn't work, and I see it backfires, and I really don't care for it, then we have a chance of finally stepping into self energy more often at home. But that doesn't mean you get rid of the temper that way. You're not supposed to get rid of the temper because that is a part of you. That part of you is in your brain wiring. You can't actually get rid of the feelings. But what you can do is change the behavior. What you can also do is change your attitude toward the feelings. If you say, I hate my temper, you're ending up hating a part of yourself. And that's not good. So in a long, possibly a few year therapy time, you get to a place where you talk to your temper part and say, I get where you were. I get why you were there for me and I appreciate it. But let me handle things from now on. You can go take a break. And then when something comes at you, which you used to perceive as a trigger and your temper used to react automatically, you see it as merely something to say, wait a minute, how do I want to react? And there is a pause. There is a moment to contemplate because your self energy has taken up so much more of your headspace in your life in general that you can do that. So this couple, they came in for about 5 years with breaks when one of them said, I can't stand this. And finally, about 5 years ago, they gave me a wonderful interview in which they said that things were so much better and they were getting along and things that triggered them, they just laughed at. Well, that did hold up for a while, but about a year later, I did get a report that it didn't last. And so back to therapy again. But they did have a long break from therapy and they were kind of refreshed. The husband said, however, Dr. Deb, I know you're doing this new IFS thing, and I don't want to go into my past. I'm not going there. We'd already gone into the past enough for me to know this guy inside and out. I said, okay. And so we basically used what would be called a cognitive approach, reasoning. Not so much, how do you feel about that? What feelings of childhood did it evoke? But rather, is this how you want it to be? And because he had calmed down so much and had so much self-energy, it was not a problem. He could do that. Well, fast forward about a year ago, I got a text message with a beautiful picture. They had another child and their family, their cute little family is growing and they were happy. And I was happy for them. Well, about a month ago or less, a few weeks ago, I reached out with some information that I just thought would be useful because the wife is becoming a therapist. And by the way, you should know that many therapists, perhaps most therapists, have been there and done that. And because the therapists have been there and done that, they get you maybe better than anybody else ever got you because they've been through trauma and pain. And yes, so she was becoming a psychologist and I gave her some information. And then she wrote back, by the way, things are going really well. I'm sorry I didn't write you sooner, but thank you for the information. We're so busy. I said, great, wonderful. By the way, how's the marriage? Can you blame me? I want to know, right? So I'm going to read you. It's just a few weeks ago. right now, it's hard to find time as a couple because of all the stuff that they're busy with. She's still finishing school, he has work. But we are a unit and partners and best friends. And it's so nice right now that our only issue is we both really want to spend more time together. I said, can I use this? Can I quote you? Because this is why I get up in the morning. This is what it's for. That's almost 10 years, on and off. You know, I heard another couple, and this is a different kind of a case history, very recently, where I had both of them, and one of them dropped out of therapy, and the marriage got shakier because even though the one that was staying with me in therapy was trying so hard not to be reactive, the one that dropped out of therapy was lying. Who knows if they were cheating? Who knows what other problems were going on? They went to their spiritual advisor who said, and I heard this from this client of mine, who said, you may need therapy for life. I'm like, oh, no, don't say that. I hope not. I don't want to see you all for life. That's too long. But, you know, he was just a spiritual advisor, not a therapist. The point is the degree of trauma that you had and the degree to which it's got its hand around your throat is going to be proportional to how long it takes to kind of untangle all that and feel good. I do not believe in lifelong therapy because I don't want anyone dependent on me, because I am just an outsider. I should be a stranger that you forget later on in life. You don't need me forever, but it may take a few years. Now, I developed a program, and this is just going to be a quick plug for it. I developed a program that I intended would shorten the process, and I'm going to make a correction on that. It will shorten the process for people who are already not that traumatized, who can react better, who can sit with a trigger and not react by getting enraged. For people with temper problems, it will most likely take longer. Done. I can't help it. I didn't invent the rules of how our bodies and our brains work. That's how they work. You know, I was making a plug at the very, very beginning for questions, comments, and no one except one person gave me a thumbs up, which I appreciate. Please, I want to hear from you. I want to know, did this make sense? Does it depress you to hear that it's going to take longer? Because the truth is that if you don't overcome whatever the issues were that caused the temper in the first place, you're going to keep on having it forever. You can remarry, and second marriages, you know, the statistics do not work out well because you brought your trauma with you and all the reactions you had. I still don't see comments. No comments. All right, you guys. I don't want to keep you. I'm 3 minutes over. Please comment in when this is finally produced. It will go into production and then it'll be there under lives. You can comment there if you come up with something. You take care. Be well. Have a great day. And upcoming holidays, have great holidays.